concerts with the New York Philharmonic every Sunday morning. And I listened to the violins when I was 7 years old, and I loved them. I wanted to play the violin, but I never told my parents, you know, it would be pretty important. So, fast forward to when I was in 4th grade, John Oberbrunner from the Syracuse Symphony came to each one of our classrooms, played the flute and the piccolo, beautiful, told us we could come to the cafeteria on Thursday morning at 1 o'clock and sign up for lessons and rent an instrument. Instrument rental, I think, was $10 for the year, and the group lessons were free. He said, don't come before 1 o'clock because we're not giving out instruments before 1, so just don't come before 1. So I thought, I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to come about 10 to 1. So I get down there, I'm walking into the cafeteria, people are walking out with instruments all over the place. I'm thinking, what's going on here? They said they're not going to give out instruments until 1 o'clock. So I get to the desk and I said, you have any flutes? We were out of those half an hour ago. Okay. How about a trumpet? Clarinet. Takes me into this back room, dusts off the case, opens it up. We just got one instrument left. It's a violin. My father was ecstatic. In 4th grade, it's not cool to play the violin. Trust me. A few years later, I told my mother I wanted to be a folk singer. So the next day, she came home with a half-size Stella guitar, which I still had, and a book on how to play the guitar. So I taught myself how to play the guitar. Then from there, played electric guitar like a lot of kids, formed bands. When you're, of course, being in junior high school, now it's middle school. But my cousin bought a used set of drums, and it said the Chevelles on the bass drum. So that became the name of our band. My friend Rob joined another band, and they needed a bass player. So he said, can you do that? I thought, well, it's the same 4 strings as the low strings on the guitar. I'll do it. When you're offered an opportunity, take it. They're very few and far between in the music business. When you get an opportunity, take it. You know you can change your mind and later get another opportunity, but you don't know. I almost learned how to play the trumpet for the same reason. Rob joined another band and a soul band, and they needed. I figured the soul bands at that time, the home sessions weren't doing much at all, so I thought, I can learn that. But I got a bass gig before I had to find a trumpet, so that turned out okay. I think when I was 13 or 14, you know, Leonard Bernstein used to do a presentation before all these young people's concerts, whether it was about Beethoven or Brahms. This one day, the topic was the Beatles. I thought, oh. And he was talking about how interesting their harmonies, how unique they were compared to what was going on in rock and roll music at the time. And I thought, if Leonard Bernstein thinks the Beatles are cool, I can tell my father that, and that rock and roll is cool. When I graduated, I went to a small liberal arts college in Finger Lakes called Hobart College. It's probably like Coe College. I wanted to see how the rest of the world lived, so I put my violin away. Didn't play it out. I tried everything. I didn't like anything I tried, but I tried everything. The last day of school, freshman year, I took my violin out. Figured, well, I know how to play this. couldn't play a note. I thought, well, I've done this all my life, and I should be able to do this. So after that, I maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, got it back out, practiced all the time, formed another band with my friend Rob and someone else. Had a few gigs over the summer. But the next year in school, all I was doing was playing music. Writing music, playing music, wasn't going to classes. Called my mother, said, Mom, I'm quitting school. That conversation lasted 10 seconds. So I figured I had to come up with a plan B. So I called her a few weeks later and said, how about if I go to music school? She said, will you get a college diploma? I said, yeah. So she said, okay. So then I started working. I interviewed at Ithaca. It was with Carl Husa, genius of the composer. And at the time of the interview, he was in a class, so I knocked on the door, walked in and said, told him I was here for the interview, handed him some music I was writing. We're doing serious music here. So I thought I better work on it a little bit more. Syracuse apparently saw something in me. Studied composition with Dr. Earl George. And just by luck, I wasn't going to be a performance major. The professor was Louis Krasser, and I don't know if you know the name. You could Google it, find out. He is the reason there's an Alban Berg violin concerto. He did the world premiere of that concerto and the Schoenberg concerto. But I was at the right place at the right time. So I've got a million Louis Krasser, we call him Louis endearing. During school, I had a duo with Rob, the same person from years ago. We played 5 nights a week. Our main gig was in a place called the Bargain Country House. We started in the basement, and you could see there was an opening, and there was someone mentioned chicken wire. There was chicken wire, not because people were throwing things, but if people, knocked their beer bottle over or whatever, we'd be protected. But we graduated to the top floor and made more money, bigger crowds. We did that all through school. That paid for my school, but playing every night and going to school during the day. And in order to Dr. George was a wonderful composer. Wasn't really a great advisor. I found out, I don't remember how or when, but in order to graduate, I had to do a performance recital from the violin repertoire. I think I did Paul Company, Beethoven Sonata, Franck, Martin Madrigals, and a composition recital of my own music for 1 hour, whether I played it or not. But I don't even know if Dr. George told me that I had to do that to graduate. But I found out, and somehow, thinking about it now, I can't imagine how I put that together and worked at night, but I did. But I couldn't wait for the time where I would just all I had to do was play at night, not go to school. When we graduated, we decided, like everyone in New York wanted to do, go to California. So we got packed up the van, went to California. We stopped in Aspen. We wanted to do an audition for one of the clubs there. The manager told us to come and play Thursday night for free, and that'll be the audition. But since we were acoustic, while he was eating lunch, we just brought up our instruments, played a few songs. He said, "Oh, okay, then you can come play for me. You can have the gig on weekends." And we also played at a place called Jake's Abbey there. Then we went to California. We had no money. We started out with no money, so we had less money. Actually, when we were in Aspen, when we first got there, we stayed at a place called Rick's Racks. And I think we stayed in a room with, I think there might have been 12 bunk beds. Very inexpensive, but like I said, we had no money. Got to California, and in the paper for a talent contest. I think it was called the Palomino Club in North Hollywood. So we won $50. It was like winning the lottery. But then we ended up working in San Diego, and we played, the place we played in San Diego had restaurants all throughout California. They moved us to mountains in California. And then after several months, I got tired of it, went back to New York. I don't know how I got in this band, but it was a 6-piece band called the Mossback Mule Band. Actually, there's some videos on YouTube. It was a good band. We made lots of money, but our overhead was, we spent it on sound equipment, the trucks, so we never saw the money. One thing I'll say about Louis Craftsman, he always surprised me. I remember walking out of a concert in Cross College, and I bumped into him. I didn't want to see him because I knew he's going to say, "What are you doing now, Ron?" And I was so embarrassed to say, "I'm playing fiddle in a country band." And he said, "Oh, that's wonderful. So many students, when they graduate, stop playing music. I'm so happy." He always, but that's the only Louis story today. Country stars, or maybe other stars too, after they've done their shows or they would always love to go out here and hear local music, hear what the local bands are like. So we were playing in a city called Westmoreland, and Charlie Dan walked in, listened to our last set. He ended up engraving. He signed his name on the guitar player's Telecaster, but he engraved it with a ballpoint pen. The guitar player was ecstatic, so happy. We were playing in Rome, New York. Mickey Gilley was playing at the Boonville Fair. After the fair, he and his band came to hear our band, the Mossback Mule Band, where we were playing. And my philosophy was always, if you hear something on the radio, why would they want to come hear us play exactly the way they played it? They could just play the record. Although most of the bands tried their hardest to sound like the radio, like the record. My philosophy was just the opposite. If we want to do a song, we need to create our own version of it. And that is the one thing that Gilley liked the best about it. Because of that, he decided to bring us, Gilley's club was, before it mysteriously burnt down, the largest nightclub in the world. And he had just built a recording studio attached to it, and wanted us to come down, record an album, and play his fun. I remember seeing on the Ed Sullivan Show, the same place where the Beatles were, there was a Russian dance troupe wearing floor-length gowns, and it looked like they were on roller skates. They were so fluid, walking around. We went with the Johnny Lee and Mickey Gillies bass player. We went, the first time we went in with that, we found out in New York, if you're wearing a hat, when you go inside, you can take your hat off. In Texas, get out of the car, walk up to the door, put your cowboy hat on, walk into the club, and there are people, then I saw that same fluidity of doing the Texas two-step around that huge dance floor. Guys with their Lone Star long neck in their back pockets with their cowboy hats on. It was amazing. We recorded the album. Nothing came of it. Not a surprise. We came back to New York. While I was there, I made friends with the fiddle player in the house band, Robert Heritage. We would write letters to each other, you know, on paper. Put them in, I don't know, put them in an envelope and stamp. There was no internet.
Can you explain that better?
But Robert actually called me one day, said, Gillies, neat fiddle player just left, and he's looking for a new fiddle player. So I called Gilly. I said, Gilly, I'm your man. He said, we're leaving in 3 days. Can you be here in 3 days? I said, sure. So I got on the phone. I thought, how am I going to get down there in 3 days? When you're offered an opportunity in the music business, take it, because you don't know. I mean, I always wanted to go on the road in a big bus with a big star. Mickey Gilly wasn't the one I was thinking of, but that was the opportunity that presented itself. So I took it. Joined Gilly's band, was called the Red Rose Express. His big hit at the time was Room Full of Roses, so that's where they got the name. So I drove, packed up everything I could in my little Dodge Colt, found out that I had the only vehicle in the state of Texas that did not have air conditioning. Even old pickup trucks had air conditioning. I didn't have it. But it shares the border with Houston. Two completely different cities. Driving down Red Bluff, one of the main thoroughfares in Pasadena. After 3 days or 2 days maybe on the road. There was a huge white cinder block building with big, bold, red letters. Knights of the Coe College Lecture. Did I just go back 100 years? They're getting, I rehearsed with the band. Gilly and the drummer take me in the back room, or side room near the studio. Told me two things. In the band I had in New York, we wore t-shirts and blue jeans. So I figured if I'm playing for a country star, I'm going to have to wear nice Western shirts and maybe pressed jeans. So Gilly told me two things. He said, what goes on the road stays on the road. I thought, it's your business, do what you want. And he said, he pointed to a coat rack and said, the old fiddle player was bigger than you, so you're going to have to get your suits altered before you go on the road. He points to a coat rack. There was a red one, a blue one, and a yellow one. Like that. I thought, okay. I would put on the suit about 1 minute before the show, and the second the show was over, I didn't like this. Someone wrote a magazine article that Irving Azoff, who was a film producer, read. It was called Urban Cowboy. And it was about Gillies. And that's when they decided to make the movie. So I was in the right place at the right time. Charlie Daniels did several songs in the movie. When he was there, Gilly said, "You want to meet Charlie Daniels?" Sure. I already did, but I thought, okay. He brings it up to him. Charlie looks at me and says, "Oh, must make feel bad." I was shocked. What we're going to play is the song that I won the Grammy Award for. Orange Blossom Fest Special. Every fiddle player in the world plays it. I happen to be there. Like I said, the right time, right place at the right time. Before we started to record it, Patsy Swayze choreographed the movie. Before we started recording the song, she walked into the studio. I was in a booth, and the rest of the band was in different places in the studio. And she was in the control room. She said, "You know what?" She got our attention and said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to dance the hoedown that John Travolta is going to dance. And I want you to watch me. Watch me for the speed. I'm going to speed up in the middle. Watch me for that. I'm going to give you a cue for when it ends. And then it has to end right when I tell you." We followed her, and that's what we did. Then the engineer said, "Ron, just one day." Engineer said, "Can you play a harmony part to what you just did?" I said, "Sure." So I did that. I played both of the parts on the track, but since there were 2 fiddle tracks, they wanted to have 2 fiddle players in the movie playing. So you'll be watching John Travolta dance and Gator Conley. But if you happen to, around 1 minute into it, like I say, in the back left, you may see 2 fiddle players, but no, it's fun. said, and we never saw her again. One thing that I learned in the movie, I've never been in a movie before. When the director says, take 5, 5 doesn't mean anything. It could be 10 minutes, 30, 2 hours. But the first time, we rushed back on stage to make sure we were ready. Then we started to get the feel of it and realized it didn't mean anything. So one time when they said take 5, Johnny Lee came up to me and said, let's go over to the studio and write a song. I said, Johnny, what if they didn't meet us? No, so we went over to the studio, spent 4 hours there, wrote a song, pretty good song I thought. Came back, and they still weren't ready for it. Then about an hour later, the director called me today, said, that's enough. It took me about 3 minutes to cut the tracks in the studio. It took 4 hours to film it. It's 9 seconds. 9 seconds of music took 4 hours. They take the tape measure out to the camera, film one angle, do whatever they do for 20 minutes, come back, another angle, tape measure. They only have one angle on the film, but it's 4 hours. Anyway, if you want to just play up to that point.
Non, c'est là.
T'es un vrai cow-boy.
Tout dépend de ce que t'entends par vrai cow-boy.
Je t'ai vu ici hier soir, t'avais une barbe, non?
En effet.
C'était chouette, t'aurais dû la garder.
Qu'est-ce qui t'a sonné?
Personne. Tu sais faire le 2 temps?
Tu parles.
Alors, prouve-le.
Si tu veux.
I forgot to say, I don't know what language that was over. That's the only copy I could find. Linda Ronstadt was supposed to be renewable because, I don't know, schedule or whatever. She couldn't do it. So they got Bonnie Raitt to take the place. I was so excited to hear Bonnie Raitt was going to come. She cut her tracks in LA. And she came. We pretended we were, her band. But these Texans never heard of her. I was telling them what a great blues guitar player and singer she is. They didn't believe me. So the first time they said take 5 when Bonnie Raitt was up on stage. Got her slide out, put on her finger, started playing and singing. The rest of the band was gone. So every time they said take 5 when Bonnie was there, we jammed until they were ready for us next time. I'm probably the only person who ever sent a check back to the union. I got a check because I was standing next to Bonnie Raitt in the movie. I guess, I don't know if someone saw that and figured I was on the session in LA. But they sent me a check, and I called them, and I said, what's this for? Because I wasn't in LA to do a session. And they sent me the union contract, and it had my name with all these top LA session players. And I called them back and I said, that's not me, I'm sending you the money back. I said, I think it sounds to me like Byron Berline. You might want to start there, but it's not my money, still I don't want it. Working for a country artist, every night, they want you to sound like the record, their record. Every night you play is stifling musically, because you just play the simple parts every single night. So after 2 years, I moved to Boulder, Colorado. Started a band with my brother. We had 2 fiddles, no lead guitar. I felt like I was unchained. I felt so free. But since there was no lead guitar, I had to figure out anything I could do electronically, with effects or improvisation, whatever, to make the violin the lead instrument and make it interesting. And so, still kept my philosophy of if someone already did it this way, why would we want to do it this way? We played in ski resorts, and we played all the way in the Rockies, all the way from Boulder up to Edmonton, Alberta. And at that time in Edmonton, any place you went, any club you went into, someone would say to you, Wayne Gretzky is going to be here today. Never saw him. While we're setting up to rehearse one day, my brother says, you've been nominated for a Grammy. Yeah, I said, sure. He said, no, look in the paper right here. So I called him there and I said, I'm not in your band anymore. Am I still eligible for this Grammy? He says, we don't care who's in the band. We care did you play on the record? That's what the Grammy's for. Well, I said, yeah, they did the research, and then they sent me 2 tickets to the show. It was the last time they had it at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. If I were king of the Grammys, it would still be there. But Staples Center, you can sell a lot more tickets. Tickets are not cheap. I didn't really consider whether we had a shot in winning or not. Of course, that year everybody knew Coe College, so. All I remember was when they announced the winner, I wasn't sure if they said our name. All I remember was I was sitting in a seat, and the next thing I knew, I was up on stage. Don't know how I got there. The presenters were Jerry Mulligan and Helen O'Connell. One thing I found out, they don't know who the winners are until they open the envelope. So on the Grammy they hand you, it's just a plain plastic base because they don't know. So as you're walking off stage, they ask for it back. Thought that if you won a Grammy Award, you're automatically a member of NARS, the National Recording Arts Societies. When I moved to Nashville, I went to their office and said I want to join. They gave me the form I had to fill out to meet the requirements. I said, no, I won a Grammy Award. He said, yeah, I know, but you got to fill this out. So I did. So I'm a voting member Naras. I decided that if you're going to do something in the music business, you need to be in LA, New York, or Nashville. I was going to go to LA, but I ended up in Nashville. I knew more people in Nashville. And I'll never discourage, people, say, oh, I want to go to Nashville and be a guitar session player or be a star. I'll never discourage anyone from doing it, but I'll go out of my way to tell them the reality of it. If you're going to go to Nashville, you want to work on sessions or work on the road, you need to be world class. You need to know how to network, how to make networking is very important. And you need to be liked, well liked by everybody. If you're great, because there's so many great musicians there. If you're not well liked by producers, well, or you don't get along with the other players, what happens is every day, let's say someone in Davenport, Iowa, the best guitar player, as everyone in Davenport thinks, you're so good, you should go to Nashville. Every day, the best guitar player from wherever comes to Nashville. But one of them are going to end up being world class and making it there. So I don't discourage people, but I want them to know what it's like. About being world class, I was doing a gig at WSM TV. It was a morning show. I don't know who I was playing for. But there was also a bass player playing, and so we did our set. We introduced this guy. His name was Edgar Meyer. Maybe you've heard. He plays now. He plays with Yo-Yo Ma, Mark O'Connor, and he teaches now at Curtis and some other places. But I never, no one had heard of him before. He started playing. Wow. It was one of them. It was just amazing. Players are the ones who come up with the music ideas for the records. When a producer calls you for a session, you have to know also where not to play. Very important. For live performance also. You never, ever want to get in the way of the artist, of the singer. On stage, in a recording session, don't ever want to get in the way of the star. I was doing a session when I moved back to Nashville. Gilly would still call me for a session. He called me one time and told me, I want you to do this session for me. Told me how he wants me to play something. When I worked for him, he'd tell me how he wanted me to play something. I never understood what he was talking about. But he must have liked what I played. So he told me what, like he did when you played for me in Texas. I don't know what he's talking about. So they already cut the tracks. I went in to do the fiddle tracks. John Boylan, after a while, stops me and said, "Ron, quit trying to sound like Johnny Gimble. I want you to sound like Ron Levine." I thought, I could do that. One take, we're done. That was it. Just a few more things about playing the right things. James, I was doing a session, I think this must have been for the Urban Cowboy movie. I was there, I was warming up, tuning up, rosin the bone, While I started doing that, James Bird walked into one of the rooms, got his guitar out, listened to the song once. They played it back. He played his guitars. It was subtle and it was perfect. Packed up his guitar and he was done. I wasn't even done long. I was doing one session at RCA Studio B where Elvis recorded. I played one high note, kind of a stinger. They were hooting and hollering in the control room, just one note in the whole song. That's what they wanted. I did one session where I played a mandolin trill, up an octave, and that was it. Someone like that, they called me for another session and they wanted me to do something just like that for their own record. It's not how many notes you play. It's playing the right notes in the right place, and knowing where not to play. When I lived in Hendersonville, north of Nashville, walk in the parking lot. Great keyboard player lives there. Great drummer lives there. Great fiddle player lives there. Great steel player lives there. Kind of hard to work with, so that's important. If you don't get along with them, when people don't want to work with you, producers, other players. So Donnie West, guitar player, knocked on my door and said, our fiddle player just quit. We're going on the road with Kenny Rogers in a couple days. You want to go with us? Sure. Can you play rhythm guitar? So he gave me some albums, some chord charts. No rehearsal.
One more time.
Setup was he carries his own stage with him, or then did. Big round stage, about 70 feet off the ground. We played under the stage. You couldn't see us. I loved it. The buses would drive. I remember the first two gigs were in North Carolina and used the auditorium for the college, the university. North Carolina and then North Carolina State. Bus drives into the arena, get out, I see just a bunch of blue seats. Do the show, get back on the bus, go to sleep, wake up in the next arena, get out, look up, looks like the same one, except now all the seats are red. So after the gig, after Donnie asked me if I wanted to work for, be the regular fiddle player, and I turned it down because I was working, I had a job with a guy, Kent Lavoie, he went by the name Lobo. If you ever heard of a song, Me and You and a Dog Named Boo, that was his big hit. But we used to play in clubs, the two of us, with the house bands. I really wanted it. Then he decided he had enough of Nashville and wanted to move back to Florida and play golf. Get another knock on my door. I want to go out with Donnie West again. Sure. This time, at the end of the tour, Donnie said, would you like to be in my band? When you're offered an opportunity in this business, take it, because you don't know when another one is going to come your way. So I did. She was so different from any country artist I had ever worked for. She encouraged improvisation. If you play like a solo the same as you did the night before, what's wrong? You're not feeling well? There was one fiddle solo. Then one time she said, I'll play it again. So I played it again. Part of the show, after we did Your Cheating Heart, one night she looked at me and said, just play something, anything. Okay. So I played Over the Rainbow. And then the next night she said, now play something again. So this time I played Over the Rainbow again, but the next time I learned something different. So I played a different song, and then it became, then there was one song that I did. One time I started playing some Bach, but there was one song that she really liked. So whatever I played, she always asked me to play that song. Then we played a couple of other fiddle songs, and it became, that part of the show was like the Ron Levine show. Doing the show was the best thing in the world. After the show, getting on the bus, nothing was worse. But you learn how to read without getting nauseous. I saw every episode of the Andy Griffith show 5 or 6 times. That's all we had. Of course, there were 2 of the guys on the bus that liked to watch movies where their heads blew off. When everyone went to sleep, they would watch those. But the first thing, players in Nashville, they're work class, and they're always trying to get better. No one ever thought they were good enough. Always thought, everyone. I thought I was the only person. I thought I was terrible. Always had to get better. Then I found out the keyboard player, who was my roommate with Donnie West, thought he was terrible. Always had to work on getting better. He would set up his keyboard at night. I was getting ready to go to sleep, but he was conscientious. He put headphones on and practiced the keyboard. So I would hear. I said, Barry, you're not helping me. So, the Grand Ole Opry, we do our show, we do a sound check. Each one of us would spend about 20 minutes getting our sound, getting it right with the house, with the monitors. It'd take us 4 hours to do the whole thing. The Grand Ole Opry, there are 3 artists on a half-hour segment. You have one artist does their segment, there's a commercial, you have 60 seconds to find the nearest amplifier, plug in, and be ready to play. But the engineers there have been doing it for years. They're excellent, which, you know, I just plugged it into an amp, but you heard the sound of it. It's very, very, you know, professional sound. We would always play, whenever we did the opera, we got to do the TV segment. All the rest were on the radio. If the house band got to do the TV segment, they got the TV pay, which was higher. So I went to Weldon Myron, the steel player, and said, "You want to play with us?" He said, "Of course." I said, "Weldon, we're doing your sheet and harmony game." He looked at me and said, "They all paid the same." The journey is not over. I'm still, in the last several years, creating these 2 CDs. I also found out, we used to joke about phoning in your card. I was offered to play fiddle on a recording for a band from Switzerland. They did the tracks there, put it in a Dropbox folder. I pulled the tracks out of the Dropbox folder, loaded it into Pro Tools, played my fiddle part, put it back in the Dropbox folder. They got in Switzerland. They did the same thing with a steel player. So you can phone it in your part. The journey is not over. Now, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll change my glasses. So you want to know how I got to drive the bus?
Sure.
And I'll tell you the story about Doug. I used to sit up in front of the bus and beg the driver, "Let me drive." Because I wanted something to do, because I was going crazy. One night, everyone was asleep. He turns to me and said, "Ron, either I gotta pull over, I can't keep my eyes open, or you have to drive." You don't stop the bus to switch drivers. Driver gets off here with 1 foot on the gas. You slide in, grab the wheel, get on the gas. How about you, North Dog? So, I won't go into more of that, but I got to be the relief driver, but I had to get a chauffeur's license because you're hauling people. I asked Doug one time, Doug was from England. We were stopping during the World Series. I said, "Doug, you gonna watch the World Series?" He said, "Is England playing?"
Bingo.
He said, "Well, then why do they call it the World Series?"
Yeah.
We're done.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.